The rain fell like ash that evening, slow, heavy, and grey, as if the sky itself mourned him. I sat in a cramped apartment in Madrid, staring at the old brass envelope that bore my father's seal. It had been delivered by a stranger who smelled faintly of gunpowder and fear. He didn't speak. He only placed the envelope on my table, whispered "Condoglians, Signorina," and vanished down the stairwell. Inside the envelope was a letter, and a single black rose, dry and brittle. "My sweet Andrea, if you are reading this, it means I have fallen. There are men I trusted who now drink from my cup, but their lips are poisoned. Mateo, he was once my right hand. He became my knife. I sent you away because I saw the fire in your eyes, the same fire that killed your mother. Do not come back to Italy. Let my sins be buried with me. Your father, Don Salvador de Luca." I read the letter until my tears turned the ink into black smears. My father, Don Salvador, the man who built an empire out of silence and blood, was dead. And Mateo, his most loyal soldier, had betrayed him. The news didn't appear in any paper. Mafia deaths never did. They were buried under whispers, erased by fear. But I knew. I felt it deep in my bones, the final silence that had swallowed his voice. That night, I walked to the balcony, lit one of his cigars, and stared at the moon that hung over Madrid like a silver coin. I had promised him I would stay away. But promises were for the living. And I was already half dead. "You took everything from him, Mateo," I whispered. "Now I'll take everything from you." The cigar burned between my fingers. The wind carried its ember east, toward Italy. Toward revenge. Toward him. Italy smelled like the past, wine, salt, and rot. As the taxi climbed the winding road toward Palermo, I stared at the hills where olive trees swayed like mourners in black. I hadn't seen this land since I was 16. Now, at 24, I was returning under a name that wasn't mine, Lucia Ferraro. A ghost wearing a borrowed face. The plan was simple. Infiltrate Mateo's organization. Find proof of his betrayal. Then kill him. But simple things die first in Italy. When I first saw him, it wasn't in a boardroom or a villa. It was in the courtyard of La Rosa Nera, a bar he owned in the old district. The place was alive with low laughter, music, and the dull glint of danger. I pretended to be one of the new employees, a waitress trying to survive. And there he was. Mateo Alvarez. The man who stole my father's empire. He stood near the entrance, cigarette between his fingers, speaking to two of his men in a tone soft enough to slice glass. He was taller than I imagined, broad-shouldered, his dark hair streaked with the first touch of grey. His eyes, cold, watchful, could freeze fire itself. When he looked my way, something inside me snapped. It wasn't fear. It was recognition, like my blood remembered his sin. Our eyes met for a second too long. I dropped my gaze and murmured in Italian, "Mi scusi, signore." He said nothing, only exhaled smoke, watching me the way a hawk studies a rabbit before deciding if it's worth the kill. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing him, his face, his calm authority, the quiet power in his voice. How could someone so composed, so magnetic, be the same man who murdered my father? Days turned into weeks. I became invisible in his world, a silent shadow serving drinks, listening, learning. I heard whispers about Don Salvador's fall, about how Mateo Alvarez had brought peace to the streets by removing the old man. Peace, they called it. Murder, I called it. But every time I saw Mateo, every time his hand brushed mine when he handed me a glass, or when his eyes lingered too long, something inside me trembled. Not with hate. With something far worse. One night, after a late shift, he found me alone in the courtyard, cleaning tables under the moonlight. "You work hard," he said, his voice low, smooth. "What's your name again?" "Lucia," I lied, my back straightening. "Lucia Ferraro." He studied me in silence, the kind that burned. "Ferraro," he repeated. Not from around here. No, I said softly. I came from Madrid. A small smile curved his lips. Spain. You carry it in your eyes, the storm. He stepped closer, his presence filling the space like smoke. Be careful, Lucia. Storms are beautiful, but they destroy everything they touch. He left before I could breathe again. That night, I cried in my room. I hated him for the way his voice felt against my skin. I hated my weakness. I hated that a part of me wanted to know what those hands, the same hands that killed my father, would feel like if they touched me gently. The next day, one of his men, a drunk named Pietro, grabbed my wrist behind the bar, whispering something vile. Before I could react, Mateo appeared. He slammed Pietro against the wall with the fury of a god and hissed, "Touch her again, and I'll feed you to the river." Everyone went silent. Pietro stumbled away, bleeding. Mateo turned to me, eyes dark with something unreadable. "Are you all right?" "Yes," I managed. My heart was breaking its ribs to escape my chest. He brushed a strand of hair from my face, a gesture so intimate, it burned. "You shouldn't be here this late," he murmured. "Go home." When he walked away, I tasted blood. My nails had cut into my palms. Because I realized something terrifying. The man I came to destroy had just saved me. That night, I took my father's letter out again. I read his words under candlelight until the edges tore in my shaking hands. He became my knife. I whispered to the empty room, "Then I'll be yours, Papa. I'll be your blade." But when I closed my eyes, it wasn't my father's face I saw, it was Mateo's. His voice echoed in my mind, "Storms are beautiful, but they destroy everything they touch." I finally understood what he meant. Because I was the storm. And I had already begun to destroy myself. As I packed my bag that night, ready to leave the apartment, I heard a knock at the door. A quiet, deliberate rhythm, 3 slow knocks. I froze. When I opened the door, Mateo stood there in the hallway, rain dripping from his hair, a gun in his hand, and pain in his eyes. "Lucia," he said softly. "We need to talk. About who you really are." The world went silent when he said my name. Andrea. It wasn't Lucia. It wasn't the lie I'd wrapped around myself like armor. It was my truth, naked and trembling on his tongue. He stood there, soaked in rain and shadows, holding the gun like a confession. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Every instinct screamed run, but something in his eyes, regret, maybe, held me frozen. How do you know that name?" I asked, my voice cracking under the weight of my lie. He didn't answer immediately. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him with quiet finality. The scent of rain and tobacco filled the room. "I had men check your background," he said at last, his tone calm but heavy. "You don't exist, Lucia Ferraro. No papers, no history, no trail. And yet you walk like someone who belongs to this city." My pulse thundered. He moved closer, studying my face like it held the answers he'd been searching for. "Who sent you?" he asked. I could lie again. I could say I was a runaway, a thief, anything. But the way he looked at me, sharp, knowing, wounded, stripped me bare. He wasn't angry. Not yet. He was curious. Suspicious. Maybe even afraid. I swallowed hard. "No one sent me. I came for work. That's all." He tilted his head slightly, a half smile cutting through the tension. "You think I don't know a liar when I see one? I've lived among them my whole life." My chest tightened. "Then you should recognize your own reflection." The words escaped before I could stop them. His eyes darkened, not with rage, but something deeper. Memory. He lowered the gun. The metal clicked softly as he set it on the table. "You sound like someone who's lost something," he said quietly. "Tell me, Lucia, or whatever your name is, what did you lose?" "My father," I wanted to scream. "You took him from me. But instead, I said nothing. The silence stretched between us until it became unbearable. Then, unexpectedly, he sighed and rubbed his face, the mask of the ruthless Don slipping for just a second. Beneath it, he looked human. Tired. Haunted. "Forget it," he muttered. "Go to bed. We'll talk in the morning." He turned to leave, but I grabbed his wrist. The contact sent a shiver through me, heat under my skin, confusion in my blood. "You kill people for less suspicion than this," I said. "Why spare me?" He looked down at my hand, then back into my eyes. "Because for some reason, I don't want to." And then he was gone, the door closing softly behind him. That night, I couldn't sleep. His words replayed over and over in my mind. Because for some reason, I don't want to. Why? Why me? Did he know who I was? Did he remember Don Salvador's daughter, the child who used to chase fireflies in the garden of the De Luca villa while he stood guard in the shadows? If he did, he hid it well. The rain didn't stop until morning. When I came down to the bar, Mateo was already there, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, his expression unreadable. He was talking to someone I hadn't seen before, a woman, sharp-eyed and beautiful, with long dark hair and the kind of presence that made men nervous. When she saw me, she smiled, too sweetly. Mateo's tone shifted immediately. "Lucia, this is Valentina. She handles delicate affairs for the family." Valentina's gaze traveled over me slowly, assessing. "So this is the new girl you've been protecting." "Protecting?" I repeated, careful to keep my voice even. Valentina's smile widened. "You must be very special, Cara. Mateo doesn't risk blood for just anyone." I forced a polite laugh, but my stomach knotted. She was testing me, like a snake tasting the air before striking. After she left, I found Mateo in his office, staring out at the rain. The tension between us was a living thing, breathing, waiting. "Is she your girlfriend?" I asked before I could stop myself. He turned, a faint smirk touching his lips. "You jealous, Lucia? I just want to know who I'm working for." "You work for me," he said simply. "That's all that matters." He moved closer until we were inches apart. I could feel the warmth radiating off him, the steady rhythm of his breath. "You don't have to be afraid," he said softly. "I'm not your enemy." Those words twisted inside me like a blade. Because if he wasn't my enemy, then what was he? And what did that make me, the daughter of the man he'd killed? Without thinking, I asked, "Did you know Don Salvador de Luca?" The question froze him. His eyes, usually calm and calculating, flickered with something raw. Regret. Pain. Maybe guilt. "Yes," he said finally. "I knew him." "What kind of man was he?" I whispered, needing to hear it. He hesitated. "A man who built an empire out of fear. But he wasn't all darkness. He loved deeply. He just didn't know how to protect what he loved." My throat tightened. I turned away before he could see the tears welling in my eyes. "And you?" I asked. "Do you protect what you love?" His silence was the only answer I needed. That night, he found me again, on the balcony, smoking one of my father's cigars, the wind brushing through my hair. He stepped beside me, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his body, smell the faint trace of whiskey on his breath. "You remind me of someone," he said quietly. "Someone I failed to protect." I didn't dare look at him. "Maybe you didn't fail. Maybe they just stopped waiting for you." He reached out, brushing his thumb across my cheek. "And you, will you stop waiting too?" The touch undid me. I turned, and before reason could stop me, I kissed him. It was a desperate, trembling kiss, all fire and grief and hunger. He kissed me back, his hands tangled in my hair, the years of silence burning away between us. For a moment, I forgot who he was. I forgot why I came back. All I felt was him, the warmth, the danger, the illusion of safety in his arms. When we broke apart, I whispered against his lips, "You should have killed me when you had the chance." He looked at me, breathing hard. "Maybe I still will." Then he walked away, leaving me shaking, breathless, and terrified of what I was becoming. The next morning, I received a message slipped under my door. No name. No return address. Just 6 words written in black ink: "He killed your father. Finish it." And tucked beside the note, a photograph. Mateo, younger, standing beside my father. Smiling. And holding the same gun that ended Don Salvador's life. The photograph trembled between my fingers. Mateo and my father stood side by side in the picture, 2 men carved from the same shadow. If you didn't know the ending, you'd think they were brothers. The note's 6 words echoed through me like a curse: "He killed your father. Finish it." I stared at the gun on my nightstand. The same make as the one in the picture, a Beretta 92 FS. A piece of Italian steel. A family heirloom of death. For the first time since I returned to Italy, I wanted to scream. Because I'd begun to hope. Because I'd begun to feel something that didn't belong in the same room as revenge. The weight of suspicion when I saw Mateo later that day. He was in the training yard, sleeves rolled up, teaching 2 men how to shoot straight. Every sound, the click of the magazine, the thunder of each bullet, hit the same spot in my chest where my father's memory lived. He caught me watching. "You ever fired a gun, Lucia?" I forced a smile. "Only at ghosts." He chuckled, stepping closer. "They tend to haunt better when you miss." He handed me his pistol. The cold metal felt like destiny. I aimed at the target. The air smelled of cordite and rain. "Breathe in," he said behind me, his hands guiding my shoulders, his voice a low whisper near my ear. "Don't fight the recoil. Let it happen." When I fired, the shot split the silence clean in half. The bullet pierced the heart of the paperman. I turned, and our eyes met. He was smiling, proud, almost tender. "Perfect," he murmured. "You've got your father's hands." The words froze me. "What did you say?" He blinked, realizing the slip. "It's just an expression." But his eyes told another story. He knew. Or he suspected. Either way, I needed to know what he remembered. The file that night, I broke into his office. The place smelled of cigar smoke and secrets. Papers neatly stacked, a safe behind a painting of the Madonna. Inside, I found it, a thin brown folder labeled De Luca. My hands shook as I opened it. There were photographs of my father's body, reports stamped confidential, and letters from the police that had never reached the family. And at the bottom, one page in Mateo's handwriting: "The hit was ordered by the commission. If I don't carry it out, they'll kill his daughter. I'll send her away first." The words blurred through my tears. He hadn't betrayed my father for greed. He'd done it to save me. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from sobbing aloud. The man I swore to kill had killed to protect me. The door creaked. I froze. Mateo stood in the doorway, the dim light catching the edge of his gun. His expression wasn't anger, it was heartbreak. "I told myself you'd never come back here," he said quietly. "But I guess ghosts don't stay buried." I dropped the file, stepping back. "You murdered him. I tried to save you." His voice cracked. "Your father knew what they planned. He begged me to make it quick, to make it clean. He wanted you to live." "No," my throat burned. "You expect me to thank you for killing him." He took a step forward. "I expect you to understand." The confession. We stood inches apart, rain leaking through the broken window. His hand brushed my cheek, the same way he did that night on the balcony. "I carried his body myself," he whispered. "I buried him beneath the olive trees behind the old villa. He made me promise to watch over you, Andrea." Hearing my real name in his mouth again shattered me. "Don't," I said, shaking my head. "Don't say it like you love me." "But I do," he breathed. "God help me, I always did." Something inside me broke. I wanted to strike him, kiss him, scream, "Forgive." Instead I whispered, "Then you should have died with him." I ran before he could answer. The letter. I went to the villa that night. The olive grove was silent except for the whisper of rain. I found the spot he'd described, a single marble cross without a name. I fell to my knees, fingers digging into the wet soil. "Papa," I whispered, "he says he killed you for me. Tell me what to believe." The wind carried no answer, only the rustle of leaves. And then, footsteps behind me. I turned. It wasn't Mateo. It was Valentina, holding a silenced pistol, her smile cold as moonlight. "So you found the grave," she said. "And now you know too much." My pulse stopped. "You were the one who sent the letter." She nodded. "Mateo's grown weak. You were supposed to kill him, not fall into his bed." "I didn't." She raised the gun. "Don't bother lying, Principessa. You have your father's eyes. Unfortunately, you'll share his fate." The world seemed to slow. Somewhere in the dark, a shot rang out. Valentina jerked forward, eyes wide. Blood bloomed across her chest as she fell at my feet. Behind her stood Mateo, gun still smoking. He looked at me, not with triumph, but with sorrow. "I told you, Andrea," he whispered. "Storms destroy everything they touch." Sirens wailed in the distance. Mateo tossed his gun into the mud, hands raised. "Run," he said. "They'll blame me for this, and maybe that's how it should be." I shook my head, tears mixing with the rain. "I can't leave you." "Yes, you can," he said softly. "It's the only way one of us survives." Then he smiled, a broken, beautiful smile, and the police lights cut through the trees. The lights swallowed him whole. They pushed Mateo into the back of the black police car, his wrists bound, rain shining on the metal cuffs like silver thorns. He didn't resist. He didn't look at anyone, only at me. One look. That was all it took for the world to fall silent again. I tried to run to him, but a uniformed officer held me back. "Stay where you are, Signorina. He's a murderer." Maybe he was. But so was I, for wanting him alive. When the cars disappeared beyond the olive trees, I sank into the mud, shaking. The earth smelled like gunpowder and grief. Valentina's body lay still, eyes open to the rain. She had wanted to end the same story my father began, and now she was just another chapter no one would read. The visit 3 days later, I found a way inside the Palermo prison. The guards called him Don Alvarez, even behind bars. Fear doesn't vanish with iron bars, it just echoes. They led me to a room with glass between us. He was sitting there, hair slicked back, bruised but unbroken. When he saw me, something softened in his eyes. "Andrea," he said, voice hoarse. "You shouldn't have come." I pressed my palm to the glass. "You saved me. You took the blame. Don't tell me not to come." He leaned forward, resting his hand against mine on the other side of the glass. "They'll never let me out. The commission needed a scapegoat. Valentina's death gave them one. Then I'll find a way. I'll clear your name." A faint smile. "You're your father's daughter. You think you can fix what blood has already claimed." He believed in justice. "No," Mateo said softly. "He believed in loyalty. That's what killed him." I wanted to hate him again, but the look in his eyes wouldn't let me. It was the same look he'd had the night he pulled me from the rain, the night he didn't pull the trigger. "Tell me the truth," I whispered. "When you shot him, did he beg?" Mateo closed his eyes, and for a long moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. He looked at me, he said finally, and said, "Take care of her." That was his last order. My heart cracked quietly. "And you obeyed." I tried. The guard tapped the window. "Time." Mateo didn't move. He just whispered, "Go, Andrea. Leave Italy. Forget this." "How can I?" I said. "You're the only part of him I have left." He smiled sadly. "Then you've already lost everything." The fire that night, the De Luca villa burned. I woke to sirens and smoke. The last piece of my father's empire turned to ash before sunrise. Someone had torched it, and the whispers said it was the commission's warning: no heirs, no memories, no ghosts. I knew what they meant. If I stayed, I'd be next. I went to the pier, the sea dark and restless. I wanted to run. I wanted to vanish the way he'd told me to years ago. But when I closed my eyes, I saw Mateo behind bars, the weight of loyalty crushing him. I couldn't leave. The deal 2 nights later, I met with one of the old bosses, Signor Ballandi, in a candlelit restaurant that smelled of wine and decay. He was the kind of man who smiled only when the knife was already in. "I can make this go away," he said, sipping his Chianti. Mateo walks free. The De Luca name disappears. You leave the country. And the price? He smiled. You sign everything your father owned, what's left of it, over to me. His properties, his accounts, his loyalty. My hands trembled. You already killed my father. Now you want his ghost. Ghosts can be profitable, cara mia. I signed. For Mateo. The escape the next morning, I waited near the prison gates. The release papers were stamped. Ballandi had kept his word. When the gates opened, Mateo stepped out, thinner, harder, eyes dimmed by months of shadow. He stopped when he saw me. You shouldn't have done it, he said quietly. You made a deal with devils. I made it for you. He looked at me like I'd said something cruel. And what will they take from you now? Everything, I said. But at least you'll live. He reached for me, his hand rough and warm. We can't go back, Andrea. I don't want to go back. I want to start over. He shook his head. There's no over in our world. There's only until. I touched his cheek. Then stay with me until. For a heartbeat, he almost smiled. Then he kissed me, soft, desperate, fading before it began. When he pulled away, I saw the truth in his eyes. He wasn't planning to stay. The silence before the storm that night, I waited for him at the old port. The sea was black, the moon cracked in half. He didn't come. Instead, I found a note tucked under the wiper of my car. You gave up your life to free me. I won't let it be for nothing. I'm ending this the only way it ever ends. That I felt the world tilt. The wind carried the scent of gunpowder from the city. Far away, a single explosion shattered the horizon. Smoke rose over Palermo. The commission's headquarters was gone. So was Mateo. The radio crackled with breaking news. Unidentified man found dead after explosion in central Palermo. I stood there on the pier, rain in my hair, ash in my lungs, whispering his name until it became the only sound left in the world. Morning came the color of smoke. Every radio in Palermo whispered the same thing: an explosion in the old quarter, several dead, the commission scattered, one body burnt beyond recognition but carrying Mateo Alvarez's signet ring. I waited for the denial, the miracle, the phone call that would tell me he'd escaped again. It never came. By noon, I walked the streets like a ghost. Shops were shuttered, pigeons circled the cathedral tower, and the sea smelled of metal. Everywhere I turned, I saw his shadow. The truth: 3 days later, a letter arrived at my apartment. No return address, just my name in his handwriting. The paper was singed at the edges, the ink smudged by rain. Andrea, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. I made peace with it long before that night by the olive trees. There was no other way to end the war your father started, and the one I kept alive by loving you. Ballandi would never stop hunting us. So I did what Salvador once did. I offered myself. I killed them, all of them. And when the fire came, I stayed. Don't come looking for me. You've spent enough of your life in the dark. Go find light. My hands shook until the letter tore in half. He had chosen to burn instead of run. He had chosen me, and death, in the same breath. The return at sunset, I went back to the villa. The ruins still smelled of smoke and oil. Beyond them, the olive grove waited, grey leaves whispering against the wind. I found the small marble cross where my father rested. The soil was fresh, disturbed. Someone had added a second marker beside it. No name. Just a single metal ring, half melted, pressed into the stone. I knelt between them, fingers sinking into the earth that held both men, the one who gave me life, and the one who tried to save it. You were both fools, I whispered. And I loved you for it. The wind carried the scent of burnt olive wood, the same scent that filled our last kiss. Somewhere, a nightingale began to sing, a sound too pure for a place so full of ghosts. The choice I could have left then. There was money hidden away, a passport under my false name, a boat waiting at the harbor. But revenge, love, loyalty, they all root deep. They turn people into trees. So I stayed. I rebuilt the house, piece by piece. I kept the land quiet. I planted 2 new olive saplings by the graves. Every spring they grew taller, their trunks twisting together like 2 hands that refused to let go. Sometimes strangers come to the gates asking about the old legends, the Don who fell, the right-hand man who betrayed and redeemed him, the daughter who vanished. I just smile and pour them wine from my father's vines. I tell them nothing. Some stories are meant to end in silence. The last storm years later, on a night when the rain returned to Palermo, I walked into the grove and stood between the trees. Lightning flashed, and for an instant, I saw him there, Mateo, standing in the downpour, the same quiet smile on his face. Storms destroy everything they touch, he had once said. Maybe. But they also cleanse the earth, make it green again. The thunder rolled across the hills. I closed my eyes, whispered his name once, and let the rain wash the ash from my hands. In spring, the saplings blossom white. The villagers say the flowers smell like smoke and salt. They don't know why I smile every time the wind moves through them, or why I whisper to the branches as if someone might answer. They call the place cursed. I call it home. Because beneath the olive trees, love and death sleep side by side, and both bear my name.
If this story touched you, don't forget to hit the like button. It helps more people discover stories like this one. And if you enjoy dark, emotional tales of love, betrayal, and fate, make sure to subscribe for more. Every story here begins with a heartbeat and ends with something unforgettable. Thank you for listening. See you in the next story.